This is Auto Marketing Now with Brian Pasch.
Hi, this is Brian Pasch, and welcome to today's show. I'm excited to have Ian Cruickshank, the VP of Sales and Marketing from SpeedShift Media, talking about an innovative dynamic inventory display product. We're going to go in the lab, a new segment. I'm going to show you how to inspect your display advertising campaigns to see if people who are clicking on those ads look at an SRP or a VDP. And of course, our popular email grab bag. So with so much to accomplish, we better get started with today's show. I'm really excited to have Ian Cruickshank, the VP of Sales and Marketing for SpeedShift Media, here on today's show. Ian, welcome.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Well, today's show is really all about driving more traffic, relevant traffic, to dealers' VDPs. You know, industry research has shown that shoppers, people who are actively shopping for a vehicle, look at SRPs and VDPs. And well, I've been talking to the marketplace lately very strongly about dealers don't need more traffic to their website, they need more shoppers. Does that align with your company's vision?
Yeah, absolutely. When we're out in the marketplace speaking with dealers, we're often confirming the message that they too believe in the importance of vehicle detail page traffic. Even some folks in the marketplace talk about these people as VIN-tenders, that they're coming right into the marketplace.
That's a great term.
Yeah, love it. So they're coming into the dealer site, and really they're not a confirmed buyer unless they're actually spending time looking at the vehicles that you have on the lot, right at the VIN level.
That's right. And some of the websites designed today have almost the SRP is like a mini VDP. You know, some of these SRPs now have 2 or 3 buttons, you know, value your trade. We know when consumers come to a dealer's website, spend time in SRP searches, spend time in a VDP, well, it accelerates the sales process. We call that increasing the sales velocity. And your product is very, very focused. That's why I wanted to have you on the show.
Absolutely.
This is a display advertising product. In my words, a display on steroids. So let's wind back the clock and engage a little background discussion. How did the company start? How long you've been in business? And why are you so excited about display?
Sure. So SpeedShift Media is actually an offshoot of another company, Media Management Technologies, that started in this business about 10 years ago. And really when we started there, it was taking inventory from whatever marketplace and converting it into a printed ad, making it faster, more efficient to serve ads, put ads together for the printed world. Well, obviously a couple years after that, if less, we decided, okay, well, it makes more sense to put these in the digital space.
That's right.
So we began serving dynamic inventory ads in the marketplace about 8 years ago. Evolved there into retargeted inventory ads about 6 years ago. So really at the very beginning of retargeting
Obviously,
technology.
that you were one of the pioneers.
Indeed, and you know, it's really no overstatement to say that we did truly pioneer this space. From there, about 3 years ago, we actually broke off SpeedShift Media as a separate company, really with the focus of letting the publisher business go in one direction and allowing data and dynamic technology and dynamic display ads to really flourish under the new moniker of SpeedShift Media.
And what we talked about prior to today's show is SpeedShift Media has been kind of under the radar because some of the largest display advertising companies in the automotive space have been using your technology just as a reseller.
That's right. And in fact, you know, when you look at the construct of our company, we're you know, really probably 90% development. So we've got developers, both front end and back end, in our head office in Vancouver, Canada, that are working hard to create the most advanced display advertising solutions. And then when you look at it, it makes more sense for us to work with great partners, great folks in the space that are already working with a huge number of dealers. Even today, we spend a lot of time supporting agencies in the marketplace and supporting other providers that deliver maybe search solutions or other marketing solutions to their existing dealer clients. And because we're those display specialists, we're able to fill in that much needed highly targeted, high technology-driven display advertising solution.
And so why it's so exciting to have you on the show is that dealers didn't have access, an individual dealer watching today's show didn't have access to this really superior display technology, but now they do because you're bringing to market directly the Auto Audience Network, the AAN, and this is going to give dealers the ability to have supercharged, highly targeted display advertising with their inventory that when consumers engaged, drive those clicks directly to the VDP. Is that correct?
That's exactly right, and very well put.
Great, so let's pull it apart now because dealers think they're doing display advertising now. They may think they're doing dynamic, real-time inventory display, but many are not, okay? They're just putting up some static banners. I was really impressed with the technology. So let's peel this back one layer at a time. First of all, consumers are a little desensitized with banners.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they're not relevant to whatever they're reading on the page. Is that correct?
Well, let's be clear. How many times does an offer ad speak to you on a daily basis? You know, when you're looking at a great financing rate or a payment rate or something like that, a typical OEM or even Tier 2 ad, and those, of course, get translated into Tier 3 ads, you really see the same sort of messaging over and over.
That's
what
right.
happens to the consumer? They get desensitized.
That's right.
So if we can increase the relevancy of what that customer is seeing by actually showing them the appropriate vehicles that they've shown significant interest in online, we're able to up the relevancy level, and all of a sudden you can see an ad again because it is actually speaking to you in a language that's of value to you.
So dealers understand the importance of relevance, but what I was really taken back with is a specific comment you made prior to the show, is that other companies doing display will design these display banners, or even if they were dynamic with inventory, and they buy placement on a website, not at the content level. And what was really amazing is that your technology doesn't predetermine what relevance is. Where the consumer is on, what page they're on, and based on their past behaviors, on the fly is matching where are they on the web, what is the interest and the most relevant. And that was like a wow factor that I don't think people would understand without you explaining a little bit more.
So there's a few layers to the Auto Audience Network, and one where we garner a significant amount of information and understanding about what the consumer is looking for, as well as being a very unique type of ad placement, is the in-image portion of the Auto Audience Network. The in-image portion is one where we're serving an ad right in the lower quarter of the primary image of an auto review, and we actually take contextual targeting to the highest level. We talk about it as perfect contextual targeting. Why can we be so brash about it being perfect? Well, frankly, we're looking at the metadata. We're looking at all of the information in the background of that website to say, okay, what is that picture? What is that vehicle that's being reviewed?
Right.
If it's a Porsche Cayenne S 2014, well, we can say, okay, here's the Porsche Cayenne S 2014s from the dealer nearest you.
So let's stop right there. This is really important. Because I would say less sophisticated technology, when a consumer's reading a review about the Porsche Cayenne, their display ad could be a GMC Yukon, and the dealer thinks, hey, I'm doing display, but if they're looking at a Cayenne, I don't think the GMC Yukon is probably relevant.
Likely not. Though they're in the same category. One would previously have conceived that, you know, this is really quite good. Look, lo and behold, it's an SUV and we're serving an SUV. That's great, right? Well, it is to the point of maybe yesteryear, a little while ago,
that's
where
right.
we were getting to the point where we could actually do some interesting things. But now we're able to take it further.
Including showing a used Cayenne that dealer may have in their inventory.
Yeah, exactly right.
So what I'm seeing is, on the fly, your technology ad unit is saying, what is this page about? What is the content about? And right over a corner of the picture, like the primary, here's the the hero shot of
Yeah.
the Cayenne. You're going to put a clickable ad unit that's the most relevant to the shopper, to the content, and then if they click, it's going to take them right to the VDP.
Yeah. And actually the mind-blowing stuff about those ad units, and it stands to reason, you know, when we're talking about different types of ad units, you're going to get different performance. Across the auto audience network, we get very good performance on a click-through basis and that sort of thing. But when you're talking about the in-image portion specifically, we're actually getting about a 2% click-through rate.
Wow.
It's
and for a display network, that's amazing.
It is mind-blowing stuff. It is the hyper-targeted portion of our network, let's be clear. But that doesn't diminish by any means the technology and the value of what's going into the dynamic display ad portion. So the standard,
which is the bread and butter.
Yeah, absolutely right. So when we're talking volume, you know, you can't run a campaign just on people that are reading reviews.
That's right.
You've got to reach those people when they're exploring other environments, maybe when they're checking out the news or sports scores, all that sort of stuff.
Right.
So what we're doing as we're serving these ads all over the place in the environment that we talk about is the active auto intender, someone who's actively pursuing the purchase of a vehicle, actively researching
and
that
Ian,
vehicle.
when we talk about your network, let's be specific because there are ad agencies that are telling dealers they're doing display, but it's only through Google AdWords, which is a segment, a nice segment.
Yeah.
So just to set the record straight, what percentage of Google display ad is representing of the whole opportunity? When someone moves from an agency that's just Google and comes to your platform, what type of increase in audience and frequency could you estimate?
Yeah. So it's interesting. When we look at campaigns, we look at them on a very specific basis. For every store that we're working with in every market, we may have a different media mix of display properties. So of display networks, maybe some direct buys with different ad suppliers in those markets, with the in-image portion. We're taking the time to construct the most effective and, of course, optimizing throughout the lifetime of that campaign to create the most effective combination of all of those pieces of audience to get the best result. So when you're limiting yourself to the Google Display Network only, well, you're simply limiting yourself to the Google Display Network. For us, when we're able to work in environments from an agnostic basis, and when all of the information, because our information isn't beholden to the network that we serve in, so we're not using Google targeting or Google behavioral targeting that says this person is a Toyota intender. We've seen in our data management platform that someone who is flagged as a Toyota intender is in fact a Mercedes intender. You know, very different consumer.
So you think not only do you have a wider reach because of the open relationships you have with different ad networks, and for viewers who don't understand that, people can opt into the Google Display Network and show Google ads, but other media companies will take their website properties and give it to a management company to broker, to broker the ads. So you have to really be open to partnering with a number of aggregators. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And what's interesting when you're doing that is you can do that in a way where you're getting really cost-effective advertising. One of the real ways that Google wins today is because they provide a very cost-effective solution. Well, cost-effective isn't necessarily effective. It's effective relative to cost.
That's right.
So if you're looking at a program where you can take a cost-effective solution and add a turbo booster, effectively. So add SpeedShift Media's data management platform, add the auto audience capabilities. By injecting that into really any network environment, you're going to see increased result.
Because you own the data intelligence and the targeting. And let's be very specific, because I have been on a rampage over the last year, really talking and encouraging dealers to look at their VDP and SRP activity. In the ROI-Bot tool, we really provide the industry's best insights into VDP activity. And one of the things that drives me nuts is to look at display campaigns with 2%, 3% VDP views, meaning a dealer spent $1,000 and he got, I'm just using an example, 500 clicks, and 5 people looked at a VDP.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, come on,
Yeah.
isn't anybody looking and saying, aside from the influence and brand recognition, you're not driving people into your inventory to engage. I want more shoppers. I don't want just impressions. What is your philosophy on that? And what percentage of the clicks from your display network are hitting VDPs?
Yeah, great question. And to give you a real life example, recent discussion with one of our partners, we were looking at what they were doing within the Yahoo environment and within Facebook's ad exchange.
Okay.
And what they were seeing in the way of vehicle detail page views from those activities was maybe about 25, so more than 2 to 5%, about 25, between 20 and 25% of the consumers that were coming through that ad traffic were making it as far down the funnel to the vehicle detail page.
Okay.
For us, when a customer is looking at an ad that has 10 vehicles in that ad unit.
And let me just stop there, because your display ads are really unique, where you can display up to 10 thumbnails of cars.
That's right.
Is that correct?
That's right.
So that's really cool just in itself.
Yeah, thank you.
So when they see that ad unit, that display unit with 10 cars, and they click, what's happening?
Yeah, so effectively, at the moment that that ad is served, we're examining all the permutations and combinations that we have within our data management platform to say, what should this user see?
Right.
Relative to what we've seen that customer look at before online, relative to the context of the environment that they're in at that moment, and relative to what we've got in the way of inventory from the dealer. So we're plugged right into the dealer's inventory, typically through either a web crawl system. So we go through, we talk about it as Blue Steel, actually, kind of a fun name.
Yeah.
So we use Blue Steel to crawl the dealer website, or we can use a direct feed.
So let me ask you a question, Ian, just on that, because a thought came in my mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
Say a consumer is on a page, and this is not the previous technology we were talking about where it's over the photo or the primary photo. Let's go with this display block with the 10 cars. They're reading a review about a truck.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, in your database, you've seen that they've been to the dealer's website, or they've looked at other, automotive properties, and they've looked at trucks and cars.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a very practical example. I'm not trying to think of the one of one,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
they looked at trucks and cars. But right now, they're on a page that's reading, I'd say, a 2015 Ford F-150 truck review.
Yeah.
Would your instantaneous decision engine say, hey, they're on a page about Ford trucks, they were on the dealer's website looking at new and used trucks, would the majority of those 10 thumbnails be trucks to be relevant to that? Or
Great
would you
question.
mix even number of cars and trucks?
If there was an even number of interaction previously elsewhere of cars and trucks, then yes, we would likely have an even number of vehicles relative to, if they were looking at sedans or looking at trucks. I often use this example where a customer is coming to an environment and they're checking out all sorts of Grand Caravans. They've been informed that it's time, we need to upgrade our vehicle.
Family swagger van.
Going through the process, exactly. The swagger wagon, Toyota's.
Yeah, that was a great commercial.
Absolutely. So they're going through that process. They get distracted by the Challenger. And they see, oh, wow, that's cool. Thinking about the good old days, it'd be fun to go and drive in that, all that sort of stuff, happy feelings. Well, if they then left the site, and we're retargeting that person based on last vehicle seen, for example.
Right.
If the last vehicle seen was the Challenger, we retargeted them all day long with the Challenger, all of a sudden we're not speaking to them with relevancy.
That's right.
If we're actually taking into consideration all that they've seen on the dealer website, which is primarily maybe Grand Caravan and Journey, then it makes significantly more sense to target them with that information. With, of course, the dash of Challenger for the entertainment
a nice
factor.
Orange, Hemi-orange.
You got it.
And this is what I thought was amazing about your product, and here's the reason why. I've reviewed all of the advertising platforms this year for the Automotive Website Awards, and, well, I have an interesting bird's eye perspective on the industry. And when I go to Macy's, and I like Macy's as a company, and if I look at an orange La Crusette, cast iron pot, if I look at a strainer, if I look at a nonstick, frying pan, I'm retargeted by those products, and I always said, gee, they're so granular, just, it's beautiful, meaning to me as a marketing, it's like, wow, if I got distracted and didn't purchase, this is really reminding me the things that I liked. And what I liked about your product was, that's exactly what your product is doing. It's being relevant. It's just not another display, static display expression that may or may not be right. And it's not just dynamic inventory that's being placed no matter what page they're reading. And I think dealers and marketing managers need to know that well, some of the most sophisticated e-commerce companies in the world are using your technology. Now they can get it direct. Is that
they
right?
can get it direct, and I'll take your example one step further. If you were looking at Crusette and you're looking at strainers and you're looking at a few other things, that company, Macy's, and who they're working with may be able to go through the process of determining that those who purchased these items before or looked at these items would also be interested in these items here.
It's almost like what Amazon.com does is when you're on a product page, it says other people. And is your platform suggesting in the 10 block, instead of a 6-pack, I guess it would be a 10-pack.
Why not?
In the 10-pack, if they were looking at XYZ cars, you may say, wow, people who like these also looked at, and are you proactively suggesting alternatives?
You've got it. So within the system, of course, we're keeping track of all the different vehicles that make sense within a same trim level or same vehicle type, that sort of thing, body style. So if we've got someone who's been looking at, say they're just sticking to A7, Audi lover, they're going into the A7 world and they're checking those out. They get distracted every now and then by the A5 convertible maybe, but really they're looking at A7s. So we know that they are an A7 intender. We're going to show them the vehicles that they saw when they were on the site. But we've since had 6 more A7s come on the lot that customer hasn't seen yet. We absolutely want to show them those vehicles. We want to show them something that's going to be more likely to bring them back. Showing
and it's
them
fresh,
the same
right?
thing.
It's
yeah,
fresh.
You got it. The same thing over and over. How many times does that Macy's ad actually get to the point where it's stale?
No, and that was the only thing. It's so interesting you say that because, you know, after 1 day or 2 day, like enough's enough. You know what I mean? Okay, yeah, I know I looked at the orange La Crusette pot, but maybe if it showed a orange, I don't know, decanter or maybe another a chafing disc or something like that that was orange. I was, oh, maybe I never thought that, you know. And
thinking from the vehicle's perspective, if you're looking at 3 different vehicles and you've checked them out and then 2 leave the lot, why would I retarget you with those? Or maybe I don't have the ability to retarget you if all 3 leave. Whereas within our system, of course, we know what those vehicles were, and we can retarget with existing vehicles.
That makes great sense. And Ian, I'm so glad you came on the show because I think that in our industry, honestly, there's a lot of good solutions for SEM. Meaning, you know, dealer.com, Haystack, CDK. I think they've done a really good job of fine-tuning SEM, and nothing's perfect, so you have to inspect. But I haven't really been blown away with the quality of relevant display, and the only way I measure it is if this display ad was designed or sold to the dealer to sell cars, I'm going to see, did they come back to an SRP or a VDP? And I'm okay with an SRP. But what I'm seeing is that 20% or 30% of these clicks are looking at inventory. The rest, I don't know where they're going, but they're not exhibiting shopping behavior. And your product is in a no man's land. You know, no one's stepping up and saying, no, listen, I'm accountable. You can see my clicks in Google Analytics. You can see my VDP penetration. So a dealer who wants to investigate using your company, they can still use their social media engagement company, still use their SEM company.
Absolutely.
And they would just say, hey, do my retargeting and display.
You got it right. And you know, I would say that there probably aren't a lot of people who've jumped up to the plate because there's still so much to be figured out in search. And because there's still a significant amount of push in that direction, there's a lot of activity. Also, as we all know, dealers are heavily focused on that last touch and attributing that search activity. For us, of course, when we look at our metrics, we look at activity after the click, but we also look at view-through
That's
activity.
right.
So when a customer has come to the site for the first time or just seen the ad unit and then arrived at the site, we're keeping track of those things as well, because there's a significant amount of attribution in any display campaign that starts to manifest itself in search activity, in direct page views, and in a variety of other different ways.
And for viewers who don't understand a view-through conversion, let me just clarify that. So a person goes to the dealer's website, they're retargeted, and now they're followed around by this dynamic inventory, and they're like, yeah, I got to get back to Circle BMW. I got to get back to Circle BMW. I got to get back. And then they don't click on your ad, but you know that they saw that display ad 3 times. And then they go, www.circlebmw.com. Your system, and most sophisticated systems, will say, hold on, that visit converted because that person, I know who they are, I know they're tracking, you know, cookie or pixel, however you're doing it, that unique ID, they came to the website.
That's right.
So, Ian, awesome technology.
Thank you.
What does a dealer have to commit to get started? Is it a long-term contract? How quickly can they get started? For the viewers today, give us a little setup on, well, you know.
How's it work?
Yeah.
Yeah. So pretty straightforward. We don't believe in tying anyone into a long-term contract. We believe in showing what we can do, and people stick around because they want to.
Right.
Performance-based. You know, straightforward. So at the same time, we know that when we're working with a customer, that because there's lots of learning that happens initially in a campaign, particularly with retargeting, if there's no pool to retarget with,
That's right.
you obviously can't retarget.
You have to build up that campaign.
So we'll run a campaign that's 3 months to start, and typically, in fact, at a pretty high conversion rate, folks then extend into a month-to-month program.
Well, that makes sense, and I think any dealer who hired an online advertising company with the sophistication, you know, we're not talking about a miracle overnight, you know,
No,
like, you know, turn a dealership's operation around. But I will say that from what I'm seeing out in the marketplace and from what we've learned about your company, that this is a refreshing change to display advertising. So, Ian, when people want to learn more about the Auto Audience Network, the AAN, where do they go or who do they call?
Yeah, easy enough. You can contact me if that's the easiest way for you.
Sure.
It's ian@speedshiftmedia.com.
Great.
Otherwise, of course, you can go to the autoaudiencenetwork.com, or if you don't want to type that much, just autoaudience.com and you'll get there.
Great. Well, Ian, thanks so much for being on the show. I'm looking forward to having some shared clients, to look at the data, to do some write-up about this because, well, this is a missing piece of the puzzle for dealers who are looking to drive more in-market shoppers back to their VDPs to accelerate sales and their sales velocity. This is, I think, one of those core products that a dealer has to have, and I'm really glad that we had a chance to have you on the show.
Very good to be here. Cheers.
Thanks. Welcome to In the Lab. It's a new segment on Auto Marketing Now, where I'm going to give viewers hands-on instructions on how to innovate their marketing strategy. It could be a look into Google Analytics or a look into Facebook advertising, but in the lab, you'll see it hands-on to play over and over again to get it right for your dealership. Since today we've been talking about display advertising and VDP views, we're going in the lab to see how you can inspect your display advertising campaigns to see how many people are clicking to your website from your display ads and looking at SRPs and VDPs. It's that simple once you know how to do it. And so we're going to go in the lab and take care of that strategy right now. And now for today's email grab bag. A digital marketing manager wrote, Brian, I understand the importance of VDPs. Everyone seems to be talking about it, but what about SRPs? Aren't they equally as important? Well, I'm glad that this question was submitted. I've been saving it until a show where we're talking about VDP activity, and you're absolutely right. We have to be careful on what metrics we use to determine what is a true shopper. For example, if a consumer comes to your website and just stays on the home page and then leaves, I have no idea if they were a shopper or maybe someone who was looking for service or the phone number to call one of the employees. But when somebody comes to the dealership's website and spends time on a VDP, not 1 or 2 seconds, if somebody takes the time to run through and do a few searches of in-stock inventory, that's a shopper. So today's show, we've been talking about driving more activity to the vehicle detail page, but I also want you to understand that your online advertising should be also generating search results pages. So let's take that into context of today's show. As I measure display advertising campaigns, the clicks that come to the dealer's website, I want to look at the percentage of those clicks that do an SRP and the percentage of those clicks that look at a VDP, and I'm going to add those two numbers together. So for example, if the display ad is driving people to an SRP, well, it could be 100%. Well, that doesn't tell me if the ad quality was great, so I'm going to look at how many people then went from an SRP to a VDP. If only 1% of those people that were dropped on an SRP looked at a VDP, that display ad really wasn't connecting with in-market shoppers. But if I see a good amount of SRP activity and then a good amount of follow-up VDP activity, well, then the display ad was really connecting with in-market shoppers and they continued to shop. An SRP can be also a mini VDP. In some website platforms, like the Dealer e-Process platform, the SRP has multiple lead form buttons. Consumers can look at photos on the SRP without jumping to a VDP. So it really depends on your specific website platform. So don't just focus on VDPs, although research shows that it's the VDP activity and time on VDP that will best trigger the future success of that vehicle being sold. I also want you to know that shoppers look at SRPs and VDPs as part of their discovery process. So look at both of those metrics to determine if your referral traffic, your social media traffic, and your advertising dollars are generating the right type of traffic, high quality shopper traffic to your website. If you have an email grab bag question that you would like to submit, just send it to me here at CBT News. And if I use your question, you'll get a free copy of my new book, Mastering Automotive Digital Marketing, the first textbook for automotive professionals. So get focused on looking at your analytics, take a look at your SRP and VDP activities, and remember the In the Lab segment you can replay, well, to learn how to set up the right segments on your Google Analytics account. So we'll see you next week on Auto Marketing Now.
Thank you for watching this week's edition of Auto Marketing Now.